Claudia? Whoa. 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 Ah. Yeah, I was gonna say that's a bit too easy though. But he was able to stabilize it. Ah, Mikkel. Just like Jonas. Now, wow, look at this. Wow. I was gonna say, Helge also had those comics, right? In the cabin?
Meine Mutter hat heute Geburtstag.
Oh. Hey!
Kein Problem.
Whoa. Yeah.
Sieht ja aus wie Gretchen.
Quatsch.
Oh, here we go. Maybe she shouldn't have brought it to the police station, right? Oh. This is the reason.
Finden Sie es nicht außergewöhnlich? Dass Alexander Tiedemann den Namen.
Ah, shit.
Kommen Sie?
Ja.
Huh, now then. Look at this. Ellie Doppler certainly took an interest.
Nichts hat sich geändert. Alle lügen. Alle betrügen.
Dein erster Gedanke ist, dass ich mich prostituiere.
Yeah.
Weißt du, das Problem sind nicht die Geheimnisse. Das Problem ist der Scheiß, den jeder in jeden hineinprojiziert.
Oh. Whoa, look at this. Cleaned up nicely. Did you grab one of Michael's shirts? Whoa.
Was ist das?
Eine Zeitmaschine.
Du meinst es ernst, ja?
It feels like it's really important to him that Hannah believes him.
Ich habe alles falsch gemacht. Ich habe versucht, ein Geheimnis zu bewahren.
Ah.
Aber in Wahrheit ist es genau das, was uns kaputt macht.
Hmm.
Deswegen will ich, dass du selber siehst.
Whoa.
Mit eigenen Augen. Papas Geheimnis.
Whoa. Just like Jonas in episode 1.
Mach mal plötzlich
Oh,
Spaß.
come on.
Sie sagt, er gehört ihr.
Whoa. Oh. Yeah.
Sie ist mir zugelaufen.
And she ran up to her as well, right?
Gretchen. Woher wissen Sie das?
Wow. Those eyes are beautiful, man. Both of them.
Ist. Genauso wie es deiner ist.
This is it.
Also hat er schon gestreut.
Oh.
Ins Krankenhaus. Freitag schon.
He was about to tell Claudia earlier. Oh, so it looks like they have a history in the family.
An genau diesem Moment.
Yeah, she was on that other side before, right? At some point.
Geh zu den Jalousien. Ich bin du.
Ah,
Wurde von mir gesagt, dass wir eine und dieselbe Person sind.
Ich bin du. I totally butchered that, but that's like an iconic line of this already.
An dem Tag, als sie in die Höhle gelaufen ist.
Ah.
Ich habe sie auf die andere Seite gebracht, damit du sie findest.
The one thing I do know is sooner or later, he is going to get caught at some point. The rope burns, man, they need to happen.
Da geht's Geister.
Look at this, great shots.
Die man von
Ah.
seinen Eltern erbt. Und dass man es dann weitergibt. Von Generation zu Generation. Und wenn sie da ist, dann nur um an mir rumzumosern.
See, that's interesting, given that photo they showed me.
Sie hat noch nie "Ich liebe dich" zu mir gesagt.
Really?
Ich liebe dich.
I was gonna say, it's your chance, bro.
Letztes Jahr kam ein Vinland.
Oh.
Das sind seine Sachen. Ist nach ein paar Tagen wieder gegangen, wollte das Zimmer aber behalten. Als er gegangen ist, wollte er, dass ich ein Paket für ihn aufgebe.
Oh.
An wen?
Oh.
Jonas Kahnwald.
That's from the book. Her grandpa's book. A Journey Through Space and Time, right? Or Journey Through Time, sorry.
Das habe ich ganz vergessen.
She's rattled, man. Look at her. Wow. Oh my god, is this actually going down? You know, I've noticed that Hannah, her ring, it kind of resembles the globe torch. Whoa, whoa. Is he gonna... Yeah, he recognizes it. Oh my god. Whoa, how cool.
Müsstest du nicht in der Schule sein?
He knew. He knew.
Manchmal weiß man eben nicht so recht, wohin mit sich selbst.
Oh, fuck off, Noah. I love him.
Da würde ich aber lieber nicht rein. Da drin ist es wie in einem Labyrinth.
A labyrinth.
Sind schon manche nicht mehr rausgekommen.
Yeah, some have been lost. Forever, huh?
Aber niemand kann das ändern. Niemand. Nicht einmal der weiße Teufel. Der weiße Teufel. Das hast du schon mal gesagt. Damals, als Kind.
Ooh.
Das ist die größte Entdeckung der Menschheit. Und zugleich ihr Unfall.
Ha. How about that?
Es lässt sich durch die Zeit reisen. Und jedes Opfer, das es benötigt. In 5 Tagen beginnt alles neu. Du musst Adam stoppen.
Wer ist Adam?
Right.
Du verstehst es jetzt noch nicht.
In time. Right? Okay. See, the thing is, Claudia Tiedemann is, like, brilliant, right? So, I think convincing her isn't going to take a lot of...
Leben ist am Ende nur eine Ansammlung von verpassten Chancen.
And regrets, perhaps.
Du hast nicht mehr viel Zeit mit Regina. Aber wenn alles gelingt, wird sie leben.
Wow. Woo! How about that, Claudia? Yeah. That feels like iconic sci-fi imagery to me. Already. Just seeing it twice in this episode now. Surely it can't be this easy, right? Fuck! I knew it. Wow. Wow.
Warum hatte dieses Foto?
Yeah, that's the real question. Wow. Yeah, she's...
Warum hat mir nie gesagt, wer meine Eltern wirklich sind?
Huh. Oh my god, there it is. Wow. I got really sad, even though I know he's gonna get out of this somehow.
Du kennst die Regeln.
Her reaction is quite interesting there.
Warum sagst du nicht, dass wirklich in der Todeszone ist?
Shit. Ah. Interesting, interesting.
Aber hinter der Mauer!
Oh. Okay, so she cut him down. Who is that? It's annoying me. It's frustrating. I can't put it together.
Wollte wissen, was aus dem
Yeah,
geworden ist.
so do I.
Was ist immer noch hier? Wo?
Whoa. Oh my god.
Ich möchte mit einem Patienten sprechen.
Okay, this is insane. Well, he made it. He made it. Who's this? Is this someone I should know? Could it be someone's mom? Oh my god. I'm so nervous right now. I have like butterflies. Ooh, long gray hair? I saw someone like that in the opening, right?
Mein Name ist Egon Tiedemann. Ich habe Sie vor 34 Jahren verhaftet.
Whoa. Oh, he remembers that name all right.
Egon Tiedemann.
Yeah, yeah. I see a bit of resemblance there.
Das bedeutet, dass du Trottel immer noch nicht
Yeah.
ahnungslos zu sterben, so wie du geboren wurdest. Jedem das, was er verdient.
You know, there is a moment, but maybe it's early, first few episodes. It's around the time Ulrich is trying to jump over. He's got his hood on. He actually kind of looked like that.
Glaubst du, dass für uns einen Plan hat?
Yeah, she believes that.
Ich glaube, ja, ich glaube zum Beispiel, dass Gott dafür gesorgt hat, dass du zu mir kommst. Und dass sein Plan für mich ist,
To look after him or raise him. Yeah. Wow. The universe certainly brought them together. It felt like that. Really early on. Ah, it's so dark. Oh my god. That's raw as fuck. Right, and he got shot. Did it skim him or did it actually go through him? So she was she's still quite upset. She was quite upset to see Jonas hanging up there and about to die. So who is this? Someone who has a connection to Jonas somehow. Wow. Ulrich. Regrets. Yeah. Wow. I mean, at this point, I'm crying through like every episode at some point. I have a really strong attachment to pretty much all these characters at this point. Wow. Wow. But yeah, imagine Hana in that moment. Interesting parallels here. The cuts. Whoa. Okay, so she's burying it so Claudia can find it. Meaning old Claudia has to be in 53, right? Or 54.
Sie hat gesagt, es ist ein Portal.
Wer?
Claudia.
Ich habe Kassetten. Da spricht eine Frau drauf.
The woman.
Ihr Name ist Claudia Tiedemann. Ich
The
weiß,
brilliant Claudia Tiedemann.
Das ist vielleicht der einzige Weg, um zurück nach Hause zu kommen.
Well, could this be the thing Jana Nielsen saw, the big head?
Jonas!
Whoa! She does know who that is. Okay, so let's pick up right at the ending. Lots to get through, but let's begin at the ending. The beginning is the end. Yeah, so Jonas has stepped into the God particle. You know, the Higgs boson, the Higgs field. And I love how, you know, the imagery kind of makes it seem like it's embracing Jonas. You know, there's that one moment as he kind of reaches in. And wow, it almost kind of felt like organic matter kind of, you know, opening up and almost kind of, you know, again, embracing him, right? Accepting him rather than rejecting him. This anomaly, essentially, because Jonas is one of the anomalies of this story, right? And ultimately, this was the only route, right? This was the only route for Jonas. You know, he doesn't have the contraption. The passage is closed. So this was all or nothing. This was his only route, right? So now, you know, again, the nature of this story, I do know at some point he does make it back, right? He does make it back. Now I say at some point because I think it would be a bit too easy, right? If he was to step right in and go right back to the time he wants to go back to, and that being 2020, right? Don't think it's going to play out like that, right? I mean, I certainly hope not. I certainly hope not, because there's a lot of really interesting things that can happen. And I do believe, you know, for the progression of the story, he has to go somewhere else, right? And that makes sense, right? This thing, even though, you know, he was able to stabilize it, there's no control in terms of the year it's supposed to take you to, right? So unlike the contraption that is kind of like a locked scenario, right? I mean, since then, I've seen 2 different time periods established, right? Firmly established, you know, at the end of season 1 and actually even in the beginning of season 1. But at that point, I had no idea, right? But essentially, it was 2052 in the cold open of the first episode of the series. But, you know, by the end of the series, or of season 1, I know that, yes, Jonas does end up traveling to 1952. Now it's 1953. And then, of course, the first episode of this season confirmed that indeed there is a 5th, and that's the 1920 time period. Though, of course, since it's been 6 months, it was then 1921. So 5 points of the Pentagon. But back to my original point, Jonas. Yes, Jonas stepping into the God particle or the Higgs boson or the Higgs field. It's not controlled, right? It's just not. So I don't think, you know, like I said, I certainly hope he doesn't just, you know, by some, you know, fluke kind of land right back in 2020. I don't think that's the right, you know, trajectory for the progression of the story, especially given the fact that, you know, he has to go through a lot of things still. He has to go to a lot of different things that future Jonas goes through, right? And kind of, again, I know I keep saying it over and over, but yes, you know, that's kind of like a target. That's kind of like the benchmark. You know, future Jonas, Stranger Jonas has gone through a hellish future, or he's just had a hellish time of it, right? Until he does kind of show back up in 2019 and then beyond. So yeah, maybe, I'm starting to think maybe episode 2 is the first time he actually gets to return to 2019, right? It could be. Now, him stepping into the God particle. Now, I've seen Jonas in 2019. That was his starting off point. So yes, that's a given. I've seen him go to 86. I've seen him in 2052 or 2053 at this point. So that leaves us the 50s and the 20s. I think there's a good chance. I think, if I was to bet, I would bet on one of those timelines or time periods for his next destination. Now, let's look at the two possibilities and, in terms of the progression of the story. Now then, if you ask me, my preference, I hope it's 1920s or 1921 to be specific, right? Given that it's moved on since 1920. And I say that because of the incredible setup in the first episode, right? There's so much that is important in that time period. 1921 or the 20s. Of course, they showed us the HQ of this organization, right? The cult, essentially, this secret group. Sic Mundus Creatus Est. So him potentially running into some of those characters, that could be really interesting. I think, for the progression of the story, that's the thing that kind of makes sense to me, rather than him going to the 50s. And also it kind of feels like the logical progression, right? Given the fact that he ends up at the extreme end, or one extreme end in 2052, 2053 now, to then kind of, end up at the other extreme end, 1920s or 1921, right? So that's my take on it. I think that's certainly my hope that he does end up in 1920, because that provides a lot of opportunities for story progression, a lot of opportunities for a lot of intriguing moments, a lot of fascinating moments, encounters. Also, there's that whole notion that the tunnel or the passage has been closed, right? And this Jonas, our Jonas, does not have the contraption. Right. So, if he was to show up in 2020, I mean, first of all, I think, I'm going to say, right out that I do not think, I'm 100% sure he's not going to show up in 2020. It doesn't make sense in terms of story progression, given the fact that future Jonas is there and like his story at this moment in time is kind of taking place there, him and Hannah. So I don't think at all, like I'm 100% sure it can't be 2020. It just doesn't make sense. But then 87 and 53, I don't think he can end up there either. Again, the passage is closed and our Jonas does not have the contraption. So I think, honestly, the most logical next step here is the 1920s timeline. And of course, as established in this episode, future Claudia is in 1954 at this moment in time, right? At this moment in the story. And she buried the contraption. A contraption, time machine. I kind of like calling it the contraption, but you have characters that are referring to it as the time machine at this point. And as the passage is closed at the moment, it's the main form of time travel. So yeah, I guess the time machine. She buried it, and it stays there that whole time until 87 Claudia digs it up, right? So that contraption stays there. I know that for a fact. At surface level, it would seem that maybe she's stranded now in 1954, but of course, she would not put herself in a position that leaves her stranded, right? Because you don't want to be stranded, man. You don't. Unfortunately, you see that Ulrich was stranded at a different time period, and man, he spent 33 years, 34 years at this point in, displaced out of time, essentially, right? That's a tough price to pay. Though, of course, he himself kind of recognizes that maybe, he deserved this punishment. He told Egon Tiedemann, people get what they deserve. Perhaps, he kind of applies that to himself as well. And he accepts this punishment, right? That he was kind of displaced out of time and had to spend the next 33, 34 years of his life growing into an old man in this mental institution. That lady at reception, whose name I didn't get, and I felt like it was quite deliberate. You see in that one shot, Egon's kind of standing on the right side, and you can only see like half of her. And, I was hoping at some point I would get a name tag, but no name tag, right? So I felt that that was deliberate. So yeah, let's see who this ends up being. Even during the reaction or during the episode, I was kind of questioning if this is someone I should know or if I should keep an eye out for. But yeah, they deliberately didn't show a name tag, so let's put a pin in that. But yeah, she mentioned that he's quite liked by a lot of the people here, or pretty much everyone. I believe she said he's liked by everyone. He refers to himself as the inspector, or they refer to him as the inspector. I guess he's mentioned that in passing or over the years. It feels like he's kind of been all there this whole time, in the head at least. But yeah, before I go back to my initial point, Ulrich, man, wow. I mean, first of all, again, great casting. And as mentioned during the episode, there is a moment in season 1 that he actually kind of looked just like that. He has his hood up and he's about to jump the fence to get into the power plant, right? The breaking and entering. He made it 34 years at this point. He didn't die. That puts him at the same time as Mikkel. It does, even though, him kind of getting out of there is really unlikely. And, it was interesting that Egon actually, he asked about like a day release or something, right? A day for him to kind of come out maybe. And she said, no. He's, this is a permanent thing. He doesn't get to come out. So yeah, maybe there's a bit of a setup there, but yeah, that was kind of shut down almost immediately. But given the fact that he's here, he's still alive, and Mikkel is here, right? I feel like, I wouldn't put it past the show to, really have that tragic situation play out that, Mikkel is here and Ulrich is here, yet, he might not even get to see him, right? I mean, there's a good chance he might not get to see him given his current situation. But again, early days. But let's see, I have a glimmer of hope, that as of this point, it's been confirmed that he is alive in the same time period as Mikkel. Also, same time period as his younger self, who's in high school at this point in time. Yeah, so that's insane as well. But, quickly going back to Egon Tiedemann and, this notion of him just being clueless. And you see Ulrich certainly takes his chance to, take digs at Egon Tiedemann or at his expense. Yeah, surely even Egon can put this together at some point. The fact that this is Ulrich Nielsen. Of course, there's that, reoccurring moment or reoccurring theme throughout time at this point. Him kind of reciting the lyrics from that song. My aim is to take many lives. The more, the better I feel. Right? Yeah. I mean, at least Egon Tiedemann clocked that, right? Because the younger Ulrich said that to him in 1953. And then, of course, an even younger Ulrich is blasting that in his room as Egon Tiedemann kind of helps himself into the Nielsen household, right? And he tells him straight up, why do you listen to this kind of stuff? But, speaking of Egon Tiedemann, I have a lot of sympathy for this man. Yes, maybe he is a little bit clueless about a lot of things. Some of the things just go above his head. But, I don't know, man. I do feel bad for him. Yeah, he's a bit of a goof, sure. But, you see that at this point, he's perhaps on his last legs. Not perhaps. It's pretty much a given, right? That he is going to die soon. And, again, there was that moment as he gets the call or he gets a confirmation that it's kind of spreading now. And this was him on the phone about the blood results. So, yeah, there's a bit of a history in the family. You see that Regina also got cancer. So yeah, it kind of runs in the family from the looks of it, right? Genetics, perhaps. Though, that's still not a confirmation. There's still that notion that maybe Regina was, exposed to radiation, perhaps, and that maybe led to it. I don't know. But, the fact that Egon Tiedemann also is on his last legs because of cancer, perhaps, yeah, it kind of runs in the family. And you see that he was about to tell his daughter, Claudia, but then ultimately he kind of holds that information back to himself. And again, it kind of plays into that notion or the theme of keeping secrets, right? Keeping secrets from your loved ones, perhaps to protect them or for other reasons. But, there's also the opposite of that playing out in this episode, right? The notion that, keeping secrets is the thing that's been destroying us. You see future Jonas, he saw just how that kind of played out, keeping secrets. Now he's taking a different approach. I mean, he literally puts it out on the table, right? And he brings his mother Hana in on it. She knows that it's the real deal. And you see that it's really important to him that Hana knows about this, that she knows about time travel. Yeah, I mean, is there anything else that's going to come out of this? Hana knowing about time travel and knowing about the contraption, the time machine. The one thing I know about this story is that everything is happening for a reason, right? Everything is kind of, part of a chain reaction that plays out, over the span of this loop. In that sense, it's quite refreshing to see this, right? In a lot of stories, be it film, shows, books, there's always that notion, as consumers or as the audience, a lot of us have had that feeling of just tell someone. Why don't you tell someone? Come on, just tell this person or tell that person. Maybe they can help you. Maybe it could be helpful to tell someone. And a lot of times it doesn't happen, right? You see that a character, be it the protagonist or any other character, they might have a dark secret or a secret that is quite a burden, but they decide to, kind of keep it to themselves. So it is quite refreshing to see this approach now, right? Him really putting the secret out there. And, even in episode 1, I mentioned it's starting to feel like that everyone is going to be in on this time travel aspect of it, right? And it kind of continues in this second episode as, Claudia Tiedemann has been certainly brought in on the time traveling aspect of it. And I'm speaking of 87 Claudia, and then Hana. It has been brought in on the time traveling aspect. But yeah, let's see if there's anything else that comes out of this. Hana knowing about time travel and knowing how it's possible. Is that the first and last time I see Hana time travel? I don't know. Given the nature of this show, I somehow doubt that. Yeah. So let's see how that plays out. And, speaking of Hana time traveling, of course, accompanied by future Jonas, that is quite the moment, isn't it? Quite a heartbreaking moment, incredibly sad moment, right? Her seeing Mikkel. Though, I like that it was presented as Mikkel in a happy moment, right? You see earlier in the episode, he's certainly not happy. And I'm sure he's had many, many days, many months and years like that. But, in that moment in time, he was happy. Him and Ines having a fun time over some snacks. And, given the nature of this story, it's interesting, right? Given the fact that as a mother, she can kind of sympathize. This is a lost child, Katharina's lost child, and she's seeing him right there in front of her. And then from the other end, she finally finds out about her husband, right? This is the thing he had to go through, right? His life. That must have been heartbreaking, and it was heartbreaking for Hana. Right now, she knows the journey her husband kind of goes on, and perhaps it's an explanation, it is. It kind of explains his demeanor and his attitude, his disposition, right? Ultimately, kind of hanging himself. Though, of course, it's still not 100% clear yet the reasoning behind that. Because the story itself still hasn't really specified the exact reasoning. He simply had to hang himself at that moment in time. And of course, that kind of, goes back to the notion that I don't know enough about Mikkel just yet and the things he might have known before hanging himself. So at this point, I just need more. I just need to see the story play out. I just need to learn more about Mikkel, right? Leading up to that hanging, essentially. And, speaking of hanging, his son certainly finds himself in the same position, right? Yes, he gets cut down, shot down, essentially. But yeah, as expected, he was strung up. And of course, for a moment in time, Jonas must have felt that, he's about to die here. And how incredibly sad was it to see Jonas standing on that plank, right? And hung up like that. Oh my goodness, the look on his face and the tears rolling down his face. Wow, that really, even though I knew he's going to survive this, it still made me so sad, right? It gave me that, choked up feeling to see someone like Jonas, right? Someone who's really been through it. So many characters have been through it. You speak of Ulrich, you speak of Helga. He's kind of undisputed in that sense. But, Jonas, he didn't ask for any of this, right? But that's the nature of this, right? That's the nature of this predetermined loop and all. But yeah, it was really heartbreaking to see him up there. And, speaking of it being sad and hard to watch, this young girl, the translator for Ellie Doppler, for future Ellie Doppler, it's become clear at this point in this episode that she seems to have some type of connection to Jonas, maybe even some kind of relation to Jonas, right? She was certainly quite upset, and that was certainly quite deliberate to show us that. I mean, you see that she's certainly quite upset to see him hung up like that, and that he is about to die. She doesn't know. She doesn't know that he's going to get shot down, right? And be saved by Ellie Doppler. Yells out Jonas. She yells out his name after earlier asking him, who exactly are you? Who are you really? Right? So she knew this is Jonas. This individual is Jonas. So yeah, I do think at this point, I'm pretty sure that there is some kind of connection there, right? To Jonas. Some kind of connection, some type of relation perhaps, but there is something there. I think that much is kind of unmissable at this point. But, here's the thing. She's in 2053 at this point, right? But she's quite young. She's quite young. She's not someone that was alive in 2019 or 2020 and survived, because then she would have been much older, right? But here you have a young teenager essentially. So that means either she was born post-apocalypse, right? Or she's also a time traveler, right? Or she's from a different time period, but she also ended up in this time period, right? This post-apocalyptic 2053. But that being said, her demeanor, her reaction to the God particle and Jonas kind of stepping in, all of that, to me didn't feel like she's a time traveler herself. Yet it also kind of feels like she could be someone who's been displaced out of time or been brought to this point. I don't know. Maybe I'm sounding a bit crazy right now, but it's either that or she was born post-apocalypse. I mean, that's possible as well. And in terms of resemblance, you look at brunettes, Marta and Hannah. Young Hannah, she seems to have a resemblance to young Hannah a bit. I thought there is a bit of resemblance there. And by young Hannah, I mean 87 or 86 Hannah. But, that doesn't really make sense then, does it? Her resemblance to young Hannah doesn't really add up to anything. In terms of resemblance, I'm kind of looking for older people, resemblance to older people that could be her parents, perhaps. But yeah, I thought there is a bit of resemblance to young Hannah. Marta is also a brunette. But the possibility of her potentially being Marta's daughter, that would also then kind of, almost by natural progression mean that Marta would also have to be time traveling at some point, because it cannot be 2019 or 2020 Marta, of course, right? It just doesn't add up. It doesn't line up. This girl, whose name I don't know yet, maybe it's in the credits, but even the credits, I kind of, I don't like to linger on the credits for too long sometimes. I don't know. But yeah, maybe I got her name. I didn't get her name in the show yet. Like, no one said it, right? But yeah, I don't know. Let's see. The only thing I think I'm sure of right now is that there is a connection or a potential relation to Jonas. That part I think I'm pretty confident about, given the setup of this episode and how things kind of played out in her, reaction to Jonas in different moments, especially that final moment, yelling out his name. And looking quite concerned for him. But of course, that whole notion or idea of unallocated parentage is certainly at play here once again, right? I'm pretty sure, like I mentioned, I'm sure that there might be a connection or a relation to Jonas, right? There is something going on there. I'm also pretty sure that whoever this girl's parents end up being, I feel like it's going to be someone I know already, right? I think that's the same thing kind of applied to Adam. I'm sure Adam is someone I already know. And for Charlotte, I'm sure the parents are someone I already know, right? But, for Charlotte, it's an interesting one. Because there is some new information being presented here. In this episode, she's on the phone. Again, she's quite upset after, finding that box at Regina's house, or coming across the contents of the box. And, to me, it's really starting to feel like that Clausen is perhaps connected to this somehow, to the time traveling aspect of this, that maybe he might have a connection to that secret society as well, Sic Mundus Creatus Est. You see his reaction to the photo. Again, there's two possibilities here. Either he recognizes that photo, right? He knows exactly, what that photo is, or he recognizes two of the people that are kind of, visible in that photo, in the corner of that photo, or, maybe he has no connection to any of this, and to him it's just an interesting thing, something suspicious to, look at. To maybe come back to. I mean, as of this point, I think it's safe to assume that he is a bit suspicious of Charlotte. But also in that sense, you can see that Charlotte isn't as composed as she was in season 1. You see that she's openly kind of quite rattled in front of Clausen. She was quite shaken up. I mean, you can't really blame her. You see that in this box of evidence, in this mention of a stranger that was in Regina's hotel. It's all stuff from her father's book, A Journey Through Time. So that certainly left her a bit rattled, and Clausen noticed this. Perhaps Clausen already knew about the things in the box, right? Maybe he wants to see her reaction to all of this. I don't know. It's possible I'm giving Clausen too much credit. Maybe he's just not at all attached to any of these things, right? Maybe he is just a normal, detective that's kind of been pulled into this. But my first inclination is to kind of attach him to something, given the nature of this story. That, he's certainly going to be attached to something in this. Again, I wouldn't be shocked if he is part of that secret society, or if he is a man from that secret society that was sent down here. There's also that notion of him not being able to drive. Again, this might be me overthinking things a lot or trying to make things out of nothing, but so say if he is also a time traveler and he's been sent to this specific point in time for this reason right now, maybe he comes from, a time period from the past, be it the 50s, maybe even the 20s, right? Maybe that could explain the reason he doesn't know how to drive. And it is strange. It is strange that he doesn't know how to drive, especially given someone in that specific position, right? He needs to travel a lot. That's just the line of work he's in. Yet this man doesn't know how to drive. I don't know, maybe I'm overthinking it. That's the really fun part of this, really trying to dig into any possible thread that I can kind of pull at. And of course, you see that he was quite interested in the stranger, right? It's quite a unique moment. It's a standout moment, him and Regina. I mean, he's quite menacing in that moment. You see Regina is quite uneasy. And of course, even the mood that's being created there is of unease. Right? Much like Regina, I think it's kind of being transferred to the audience that there is something uneasy about the situation, about this man. It's unsettling. It was, be it through his delivery, his demeanor, be it through the technical aspects like the framing and the score at that moment in time for that scene. So yeah, Clausen, wow, let's keep an eye out for Clausen. But speaking of the contents of the box, it appears that a lot of those things are actually from his book. Right? It wasn't just that one page that had Claudia rattled, or sorry, not Claudia, Regina Charlotte, goddamn, third time's a charm. It wasn't just that one page that looked like a photocopy, it was like the open book and it was a photocopy of it. It looked like a lot of those pages that she's pulling out are things that she recognizes. And she confirmed later to Peter that it's from her grandfather's book. So, I love Tunhouse. But now it's almost kind of starting to feel like all of these things, you see a lot of this research, essentially. And, maybe there's also a possibility that Claudia herself might have played a part into this research. And maybe she handed it off to Jonas at some point, right? Future Jonas, that is. I don't know. It's starting to feel like all of this was kind of pre-assembled. And, they kind of wanted it to end up in a book that Tunhouse writes. I mean, it sounds like I'm discrediting Tunhouse, but, that's not my intention. It's just starting to feel like a lot of this stuff kind of, that notion of falling into his lap, right? Not by chance, but for quite a specific reason, right? Everything's happening for a reason. Nothing here is by chance. And speaking of that, the box itself and the contents of the box and future Jonas leaving all of that up on the walls, I think that was deliberate. It's starting to feel like that was deliberate. He was hoping that they do come across it, or Regina comes across it, or through Regina, Charlotte comes across this. And then, of course, it's going to sent Charlotte down a path, perhaps maybe even Clausen finding this stuff. I mean, regardless of that, I think it's quite deliberate. It feels quite deliberate that he left it up there, and now it's been found by, Clausen and Charlotte. And of course, Charlotte was able to see that this is indeed out of her father's, her grandfather's notebook. But circling back to unallocated parentage, Charlotte, there's some new information that came to the forefront here. Her grandfather told her nothing about her parents, right? This is new information. There has to be a reason for that. Again, I sound like a broken record, but everything is deliberate. Everything is happening for a reason. There's a reason that her grandfather did not tell her about her parents, right? Or could not tell her about her parents. I don't know. Yeah, so once again, I think much of the same type of thing is going on here. I think her parents are going to end up being someone I know, or characters I know that have been established in the story already. But in terms of any potential connections, you go back to season 1. There seems to be something going on here. Noah, right? Noah approaches Ellie Doppler. He's able to communicate with Ellie Doppler. He was ready to communicate with Ellie Doppler. He gives her a watch that Tannhaus made for Charlotte, but Noah has it. He gives it to Ellie Doppler, who gives it to her mom, Charlotte Doppler, right? So there's something going on there too, right? Noah and the Dopplers, or Noah and Charlotte. I mean, there is a connection there. That much is for sure. Given the fact that, again, he approaches Ellie Doppler, gives her the watch that has Charlotte's name on it that Tannhaus made for her. But the key information that came out of this about her unallocated parentage is that Tannhaus was not able to tell her about her parents, right? Nothing. She knows nothing about her parents. So let's see how it all plays out. I'm sure it's going to end up being some sort of mindfuck, some kind of mind-blowing revelation at some point. But I'm excited. I'm excited about all of this. And again, before I move on from the Dopplers, I love how, Peter and Charlotte have kind of reconciled, or they did reconcile by the end of season 1. And I love to see them as a team, being there for each other, Peter being there for Charlotte at this moment in time. Then, as I'm on the topic of unallocated parentage, there's a moment, as Regina mentioned, that it's known that, they have no relation with the Nielsen's at all. But again, there's that question I had a few times now: who is Regina's father? They haven't confirmed it yet, so she might not even know it, but there is that slim possibility that it could be Tranta Nielsen, right? The setup is there for that. In that sense, doesn't Regina and Claudia's relationship in the 80s, I'm speaking of 86, 87, doesn't that kind of feel similar to Helge and his mother's relationship? I mean, Helge's mother was a bit more abusive towards her, physically abusive as well. But there are a lot of similarities. Claudia is always kind of having a go at Regina, right? She even tells Alexander in that beautiful moment in the forest. I love that scene. In that sense, you've got to say Regina and Alexander are, I'm so happy that they kind of came together. They're the perfect match. As Jonas said in that dream sequence to Marta, I think Alexander and Regina, they really are the perfect match. And, in that sense, it feels like one of the most loving relationships that's kind of stood the test of time, right? And another one is Ines and Mikkel, right? A different type of loving relationship, but a loving one nonetheless. But yeah, if I do take that angle that, maybe this could be Tranta Nielsen's daughter, of course, because of the affair. Is this a reason for some of her resentment towards her own daughter? And, it kind of goes back to that moment in season 1, as she hands off that photo of herself and Regina. I mean, those look like happy times. I can't picture that right now, though, right? In the current 86 and 87 timelines, right? They look like a happy mother-daughter duo in that photo. I mean, it was a lovely photograph. And she asked Bartosz if she can give that to his mother. Again, I don't know if that happened. They didn't show it on screen, if that matters or not, but I don't know. They didn't show it on screen. So let's see. She did mention something about everything that summer. Everything changed after that summer, or something happened during that summer that changed everything. Unless, of course, she's always had that type of attitude towards Regina, and that photo just happened to be one of those few fun moments they had together, right? It could be as simple as that she accepted it. She was not a good mother. She just wasn't. And you see that she had a lot of regrets, and you see that her own father, Egon Tiedemann, also has a lot of regrets. It actually kind of plays into that idea that Regina Tiedemann brought up, the ghosts of our parents, our ancestors kind of being passed down generation by generation. That is most definitely at play in this story. I mean, that is at play for so many of these families, so many of these connections, generational trauma and, behavior. I mean, season 1's full of that stuff, right? On a generational level, things kind of repeating themselves. But yeah, as I'm on the topic of Claudia Tiedemann, wow, man, Claudia Tiedemann, easily one of the most exciting characters of the show. It's certainly one of my favorites of the show. That storyline is just so intriguing and exciting. And the thing I love about that character is that she is a brilliant individual, right? You see in the opening, on the tapes, she knows the science behind all of this, right? She knows all this. Though, of course, it was quite deliberate. They specified that it wasn't just her. So there was some sort of help, some type of helper. Now, my first thought immediately goes to future Jonas, right? Because of the established connection of future Claudia and future Jonas, or just Jonas and Claudia, right? And that they do get to know each other quite a bit, that they do kind of they are on the same team essentially, though of course there's also the setup that he's kind of being used as a pawn, but that's Noah saying this, right? So you have to kind of take it with a pinch of salt. But you see that future Claudia, she accepts that some of the sacrifices that kind of need to be maintained, right? So she also kind of accepts that dark nature of this, that some of the things they have to do are of a dark nature. She knows about that as well. And she's done it. She's certainly done her part, clearly, in making sure some of these things play out how they're meant to play out. But, in that sense, they firmly established that she's against Adam. I mean, they already established that, this is the yin and the yang. This is the light and the shadow, that, their opposition, Noah's opposition, or, Adam's opposition in that sense is Claudia. And then again, it kind of goes back to that notion of a potential Eve figure, unless Claudia herself is meant to be the Eve figure. So let's see. Another motivation that's being brought to the forefront, a new one, is that she's trying to make it so Regina lives, right? And she tells 87 Claudia that she doesn't have much time with Regina. So yeah, her motivation, her goal, also a personal one in that sense, Regina Tiedemann. So in that sense, you see that there is multiple goals, a goal that's larger than themselves, like she mentioned to her younger self, I need you to believe in something that's larger than us. And then there's personal goals as well, right? You see, Jonas has his own personal goals, and perhaps he has other goals as well as he kind of, teams up with Claudia. And then you have Claudia, big goal, larger than themselves, and then a personal goal, meaning that Regina is going to die at some point. Right? That's firmly established here. And Claudia is hoping to overturn that. And again, great scene of her showing up in her own office. And of course, the dog is the thing that connects them here. She was there. Future Claudia was there in the cave as Gretchen ran in. And it was indeed future Claudia who takes her through and puts her in the 86 time period. So her younger self can find Gretchen. Of course, it's this, loop. Essentially. But yeah, great scene. It was a great scene. But, like I mentioned, Claudia Tiedemann is quite brilliant. So out of everyone that's been in this situation of finding out about the potential of time travel, you see that she seems to be the most accepting, or, she's able to really digest it. She's still freaked out, of course. That's natural. But, the dog, Gretchen, really made things quite clear. And then, of course, future Claudia literally time travels in front of her, right? Poof, she's gone. And I love that imagery, right? The contraption being in effect and kind of creating a version of that God particle, essentially the Higgs field. But in terms of next steps for future Claudia and 87 Claudia, she has a contraption. I'm speaking of 87 Claudia, and I know she time travels at some point. You go back to the tapes in episode 1. She's one of the only survivors, and that is 87 Claudia's voice. No doubt about it, right? So she is going to time travel quite soon, actually. But, I feel like as of this point, she's still kind of in the early stages. Yes, she's going to, accept that, okay, time travel is a possibility. She's seen it happen. Her future self, once again, buried the contraption, and she was able to find it 33 years after she buried it. That takes me to future Claudia's next moves. She's in 1954, right? But I know she's not going to be stuck there, right? That's a fact. So that's really exciting. Her next, move or her next plan. So I'm excited to see that. Future Claudia in 1954, right? And then of course I'm really excited to see 87 Claudia's next moves. So yeah, Claudia is one of the most exciting characters of this show at this point in time. One of my favorites at this point in time. Quickly going back before I move on from this, she still needs to learn quite a bit before she's going to time travel herself, right? I don't think it's going to be just as easy as her having that contraption now, again, early stages, even though she might be accepting, there's still quite a bit that she needs to know and learn. So yeah, there's a few unknowns still. But speaking of the contraption, there's plenty of those out there, right? I mean, it's the same thing. I mean, there's two of them exist, but they exist at different points in time and taken from different points in time as well. You see that Noah had a contraption in the first episode as he comes out of the caves and takes Bartosz back in. And it looks like that was the beginning of Bartosz's journey. Then you see that 2020 Jonas has one on him and he takes Hannah to 1987. Right? Then you see that Claudia has one on her. She uses it to time travel to 1954 in front of her younger self, and then she buries it, and now younger Claudia has it. And then, of course, she gave blueprints to Tannhaus in 1953. Let's move on to Mikkel. You see that by the end of this episode, it feels like he is accepting his fate, right? That he is accepting that, okay, this is his life now. And I love that moment. It's such a beautiful moment. He kind of, walks up to Ines and just hugs her, right? This is his guardian. This is his guardian, man. It is. You see, yes, she's religious, but I've always felt since early season 1 that, the universe kind of brought them together. I mean, you see he's quite upset and sad over the fact that it is his mother's birthday today, but then you see later he does run into his mother, who kind of bullies him on her birthday. Surely at this point he must have clocked that this is Katarina, his mother, right? So even that is such a mindfuck for him surely. Again, I'm assuming he must have realized by now, but say he has, he must think his mother's terrible, that she used to be a terrible person at that age. But again, everyone has a struggle, everyone has a story. You see that once again, she had fresh bruises on her face. So yeah, things are not great at home. Also, let me get into the Helga and Egon Tiedemann scene, right? You see, he's kind of in the beginning stages of the path that kind of takes him to 2019 Helga, the one that's meant to have dementia. He might be in the early stages of that right now. But he said a few really interesting things. They're set up here for something young Helga said, potentially after kind of coming back to his own 1953 or 54 time period, right? Egon said, that's something you said as a child, and he used the term the white devil. At first, you could say immediately that maybe he's speaking of Noah, but has he already kind of completely turned on Noah and, the things he made him do and the things he did? It hasn't been that long, right? 6 months. I feel like it kind of took him years to realize that Noah made him do all these things, a lot of these terrible things, right? And you see his older self tried to stop his younger self in season 1. The fact that he's calling this individual a devil, to me, it feels like maybe, given the description, is he speaking of Claudia Tiedemann, right? They've set up that, yes, Claudia is meant to be the opposing force to their side, the light side. So it's not out of the realm of possibility that he told her about this Claudia Tiedemann, right? This devil. Certainly fits the description, right? Ulrich also kind of fits that description, but I don't think he's speaking of Ulrich. I think he might be speaking of Claudia, right? To him, she was probably set up as this devil type figure, right? Someone who's trying to undo their righteous work, essentially. So yeah, I think he might be talking about Claudia Tiedemann. Right then, I think I'll end it off there for now. There's a few more points, but I'm going to save them for the next episode. I'm going to, kind of push them to the next episode. I do kind of have to end it off here right now. I certainly enjoyed that episode, no doubt about it. If you enjoy that, consider dropping a like, consider dropping some comments, giving your thoughts. If you're interested in full length or early access to the next episode right now, consider checking out the Patreon page, and the link is in the description, in the pinned comment. Also, links to my social media, Twitter specifically, if you're into that, consider checking that out. Right then, that's another fantastic episode of Dark. Really quite excited to continue. And I hope I get the 50s time period next, or at least a portion of that episode in the 50s time period. I've noticed each episode has been around the 53, 54 minute mark so far, the first 2 episodes. So that's exciting. Again, it is 8 episodes instead of 10. So that's exciting to see that each episode is at least close to an hour. So yeah. Thank you for joining me, and thank you for your time, and I hope to see you for the next one. Until then, take it easy.